Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Good day to us all. Um, we're about to start. Can we? Yeah, if you can hear me, you can see me. Type one in the chat room. You can hear me, you can see me. Type one in the chat room, please. Okay, we are about 10 of us here. Okay, I can see Brimala. Yes. Okay. Yeah, Mrs. Benjamin. Good afternoon to you too. Welcome to another amazing section of the Neurodiversity Awareness Fellowship. Just before we start, I want us to go to the WhatsApp group and equally help me and post a reminder on the group so that those that are yet to join the meeting, they can join in, right? Because today's section is going to be an amazing one. You know, when we started our fellowship, we started by, first of all, building the background when we talked about a lot of things, introduction to neurodiversity, talked about the history, we talked about the science behind it. And after that, we now went into the Lego aspect of it, the Lego uh, frameworks, stakeholders, and so on and so forth. Now, for the last section, for these uh, sections now, starting from last week, we are dealing more on hands-on work part of the fellowship. Just like our facilitator last week mentioned, that hoping and wishing and rioting about something without having a proper project management on how to execute that, on how to implement that particular advocacy. It's more like making noise, right? So today's section is more of when you now start running your awareness project, advocacy awareness project, and of course, for this fellowship end, we all are going to do our pet project. When you start running the awareness project or maybe advocating for something, start working on it. There are some aspects that you must know, and maybe some of us or most of us, if not, okay, because I believe that if few of us must have known a thing or two about monitoring and the evaluation. But today, we are going to be delving into it, okay, especially as regards to neurodiversity awareness project. So without further ado, I'm going to be introducing our facilitator for today. Okay, I can see we are, okay, 14 now, down to 13. Are we moving forward? Or not? Okay, so I don't know why um, some of us are yet to be here in the meeting, but then we'll not be waiting for them. We're already 5 minutes, 4 minutes in, right? So without wasting most of our time again, I'm going to be introducing our facilitator for today's section. This is somebody that I respect so much, somebody that has an in-depth knowledge of monitoring and evaluation. This particular person doesn't just preach about monitoring and evaluation. He actually lives it. Okay. So we are so lucky to have him here with us in this meeting to be able to dish out from his wealth of knowledge about monitoring and evaluation and also to just give us some. So I'm sure that all of us we are set with our pen and papers, right? Ready to jot and take some notes. Now, with your favorite emoji, I want to see enough favorite emoji. You can drop in some fire, thumbs up, flowers, celebration, anyone you can. With your favorite emoji. Yes, with your favorite emoji. And I'm not seeing any emoji. I'm only seeing one. Your favorite emoji. Yeah. So let us make welcome to the stage Mr. Ebuka Alumona. Yes, the floor is yours, sir.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much. I reconnected just now. I don't know if I missed anything, but yeah, I was trying to reconnect because my my network, I had to switch network. I had to switch the Wi-Fi. But anyway, thank you very much for. I guess it was an introduction you did. Um, so, I mean, everybody knows me here, I think, because during the introduction, that's the welcoming of the fellows into the fellowship program, the induction. I was present and I was there with Pascal. But I'll be taking us on a session today on monitoring evaluation. And to be honest, it's quite a broad topic, but I've tried my best to streamline it in a way that it kind of serves the purpose of this session. So I'll try to present my slide. Um, so, okay. Hello,
Hello, sir. Are you still there?
yeah, could you make me a co-host so I can share my screen? Okay, thank you. Um, yeah, I can share my screen. Mm, 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 mm. Okay. Please, can you confirm you can see my screen?
Not
I
yet.
think it's still coming up.
Not
Okay.
yet. We can see. It's still coming up. Okay, we can see it now.
It's up now. We can see it now.
Okay, thank you very much. So yeah, today we're looking at monitoring and evaluation as a topic, but most importantly, um, we're looking at how it can also help with your advocacy project. So this is why I tailored today's session to that anyway. Monitoring evaluation is quite complex, but very important. Um, I mean, I started as a project management practitioner some years back, and as I proceeded to like manage different kinds of projects, I saw the need to understand monitoring and evaluation. I mean, I've worked in organizations where they are like defined units. Okay, this is project management, this is M&E, but at some point, I got the opportunity to head um, a full department, and then they kind of merged M&E with project management together, and that became like very interesting and difficult. So I had to go learn monitoring and evaluation because before then, I understood M&E from working with the M&E team as a project management person. But now that I had to, you know, head the unit where they kind of merge both departments, I had to go learn and learn about M&E. So, and then I realized it's actually very, very important for you as a project management practitioner to have the M&E skill. You don't need to have the full skill set, but it would be nice to understand how motion evaluation works. And so while we're designing this first program, we thought about how we could transition you from just the theoretical part to like the execution part, the advocacy part. And I know you've done a session on advocacy, and now we've also done a session on project management. So we thought it wise to also have a session on M&E to help you understand how to monitor and also evaluate your advocacy project. And this skill set is very important, and you in this fellowship, having this skill is very, very important. I don't know how many of us have heard of the term monitoring evaluation. In some organizations, it's called monitoring, evaluation, research, and learning. Some is called, some people call it monitoring, evaluation, accountability, and learning. Some call it monitoring, evaluation, um, research, learning, and accountability. Different names. Some just call it M&E, but regardless of what people call it, the baseline is still monitoring and evaluation. And now we're going to look at the definition just to understand it. And this definition is from CPDC. Because there are so many definitions here and there. And to be honest, there is no one particular accepted or one superior definition. But yeah, it says monitoring is the ongoing systematic collection and analysis of information throughout a project or program's life. It's focused on tracking progress against planned activities and targets, while evaluation, on the other hand, is a periodic assessment, often retrospective of a project, program, or organization. And it also says that it aims to determine relevance, effectiveness, efficiency, impact, and sustainability. So I think I forgot to also mention that monitoring and evaluation are two different terms. Some people make this mistake of, thinking monitoring is the same as evaluation. However, it's different. Monitoring is like you see, is the ongoing systematic collection. So that means while you are implementing your project, you keep on monitoring your project with different methods that we're going to look at later on. You keep on monitoring different aspects of your project continuously. You don't wait till the end or the start or the middle point to check for things that are going wrong or going right. So monitoring is very important. So it's the ongoing process. It happens every day. And a vivid example is what Pascal does with the team, with the fellowship team. You see that every session is sent, after every session, it sends a feedback form. And so that's a monitoring mechanism because it helps us to understand quickly what worked well for that particular activity that was implemented or conducted. And it's something that would not give us information to say, okay, for the next session, quickly, we need to adjust this and adjust that. Sometimes the feedback or lessons that we get from monitoring, they are things that we can quickly adjust, and sometimes there are things that we can just leave and use as a lessons learned for next time. Let's take, for instance, I am cascading this session, and after this session, during the feedback, we realized that I'm not good enough. I did not communicate effectively. The session was not well understood. So it's going to help us in the long run to know that Ebuka will not take any session going forward in subsequent sessions because Ebuka was ineffective, or we might want to investigate further to understand why was Ebuka's session not effective. So this is what monitoring helps us to do. But evaluation, on the other hand, is periodic. It doesn't happen every time. It happens at different stages of the project. For instance, at the start of this project, we had the baseline evaluation, and I think Bidmos and Pascal were with some of you on the call for the focus group discussion, and a survey was also sent to you to fill out. So for us, that's, and generally not just for us, that is the baseline. It's going to help us. The idea was to help us understand the baseline, the knowledge capacity, what these fellows that we've selected into this program, where are they currently in terms of their knowledge capacity about monitoring and evaluation, in terms of their knowledge capacity, in terms of implementation of project and advocacy. So basically, that is what the evaluation part is all about. And if it's a very long project, we can then, let's say it's a 1 year project, we can then come at the 6th month to conduct a midline evaluation, because we can't really wait till the end of the project because it's a long project. So we can have a midline, and towards the end of the project or after the end of the project, we can now conduct an endline evaluation. So you see that the evaluation part happens at different points, not periodically, not ongoing, it's not consistent. It happens at strategic points of the project, and this is basically to help evaluate on a broader scale, while the monitoring is to help adjust at regular intervals as the project continues. And I just wrote down some things like research, design, implement, report. And this is like basically what M&E is about. You have to research, you have to design your tools, your frameworks that we're going to be looking at subsequently, and you need to implement. And very importantly, we need to also report. Without reporting, M&E is useless. So we can report, or we should report to the relevant stakeholders, and I'm going to break down the stakeholders for you. So in project management, there are different segments of stakeholders. So we've probably done this in the project management class, but I did not attend, but it might be nice for us to touch it. So for instance, you see that every communication we put out about this project, there is Meristem logo. So it means that Meristem is a very important stakeholder in this project. And this is true because they are funding this project. So they are the funders in the stakeholder category. So we need to report to them continuously. What was the baseline saying? What did the endline review reveal? And it's very important because we need to keep that relationship going. Let them be able to see that this project is making impact. And this is how you are also going to run your project, because you might have, or you should have, some stakeholders, maybe funders, maybe users, different categories of stakeholders. So this project, you are the users, for instance, because you are the one benefiting from the weekly sessions and all of that. We also need to report to you by making the reports ready and available to you. It's not supposed to be hidden and kept for only Meristem or for the department or for my superior, or then the public too. Very important, they need to have access to this report. So in the development sector, in the social development sector, it's very important for us to report on our findings. Okay. Okay. So the next slide, my slide is playing with me today. Okay. So here I put down some steps when we talk about monitoring and evaluation. We've been talking about monitoring and evaluation since this session started, but what are the steps actually? So it might not be the same every time, depending on the intensity of your project. But when we talk about monitoring and evaluation, you should start with a needs analysis, because sometimes we design projects because we think that project is important for the people we are designing it for. Let's take, for instance, there is a particular project that was ongoing in the north in Nigeria, and the project was basically to build borehole in the village, and the borehole was built, and people ordinarily you'll be excited. Oh, there is now clean access to clean water in this village. But a few days later, after the borehole was installed, it was then uh, damaged. And the project implementers were like, why would they even, damage this borehole facility that we've put for them, because they don't have access to clean water in this village. And they decided to dig deeper, like to find out why this is the case. And they found out later that the women in the village actually destroyed or damaged this borehole because it was serving as an obstacle. How ridiculous. It was serving as an obstacle for them, because for them, they were facing domestic violence with their husband. Like their husband would always, you know, hit them or abuse them or whatever. So when they all go to the stream to fetch water, that was like a bonding moment for them. It was a very important time for them to discuss and console each other. So now you've come to install borehole in their village. So that means they can't go to the stream anymore. There's no bonding moment. They will be depressed after all of these things that they must have faced with their husbands. So the project quickly, the project implementers quickly understood that yes, why access to clean water is important for these people. The root cause of whatever is going on is not the water itself, but actually the need for them to sensitize the husband of the men in the community on how to treat women better. And only if they've done that would they actually put a borehole and the borehole will stay and not be damaged. So you see, needs analysis is very important. So sometimes we think people need something, but they don't really need it, or maybe they need it, but we're not going the right way to actually do it for them. And this happens a lot in this sector, the neurodiversity space. We we don't pay attention to the needs of these individuals, especially the children. We think they need this. We don't really know what they need, or we do things that we feel that they need. So we're always moving on perceived need. So there's a need to conduct a thorough need analysis to understand, to ask people, why is this the problem in this community, and why is this not solved yet, and how do you think we need to solve it? This way, you're making it participatory, you're involving them. And if these stakeholders realize that you are involving them and you are asking for their input, they feel like they are working together with you to make that happen. And when you finally implement that project, it will stay forever, and you don't even need to tell them to continue doing it or to sustain it. Again, in the stakeholder analysis, in the stakeholder mapping, there is the users, funders, like I mentioned, but there's also the people we call the sustainers. And most times, the sustainers are the users, the people that have benefited from this project. You want them to sustain the project after the project has ended. You want them to sustain the outcome of the project. Um, so that's the needs analysis. And so once you are clear on the need, like I wrote here, you can begin with the creative process of solution design. So now you have a needs analysis, you've conducted it, you've realized that this is the problem and this is how you need to solve it. This is how they think the problem needs to be solved. So we now create like a solution. We design the solution to it. So typically, I would use a problem tree analysis to do my needs analysis. And after I have carried out the problem tree through the needs analysis, if it's not confusing for you, then you convert your problem tree to a solution tree. how do I explain this? So um, let's say I'm trying to investigate uh, why why children don't go to school in Ebuka village, for instance. So now I need to do a root cause analysis. Why don't they go to school? So in my problem analysis, the middle point, which is the core problem is that children in Ebuka village don't go to school. So on top of it, it would have the effect of them not going to school or the effect of whatever. Then down would now be the causes, the root cause. And you have to dig in so deep. For instance, one branch of that core problem would be that children in Ebuka village don't go to school because they hawk during school hours. They are hawking plantain during school hours. I can't stop there. Why are they hawking during school hours? We'll now check back. Oh, they're actually hawking during school hours because the parents the parents of the children send them to hawk. So we'll now investigate further. Why are the parents actually sending them to hawk? We'll now investigate further again. Well, they need support to provide for the family, and the parents can do it by themselves. So, but why is this? So you keep digging deep, and to the point where you can't find any root cause anymore. So it's very important for us to dig deep, so deep that we get to the root cause of the problem and look for what the effect would be. So if children continue to hawk and not go to school, we'd have more illiterate population in that village and by extension in Nigeria. And it would have, you can imagine what the effect would look like. It affects us politically, economically, so many ways. So the effects are really, really big. But then the root cause is important so that when we understand the root cause, it will now help us to solve the problem. And really, we can't solve all the problems, but then we can now say, maybe you as a project management practitioner now, or someone that wants to implement a project, you can now focus on the parents not having enough means of income, so the children would not have to hawk to support. You can now look for a way. Is it that only the husband is working and the wife is not, or both of them self they're actually working? And so maybe you need to design a skill acquisition program to help the parents have more skill sets and also give them seed funding to start up small business that can support what they are doing. So that way you close that need for the children to support. So that way the children would not have any reason to go and work and they can go to school. So it's very, like I said, M&E is very complex. So now once you have your solution, um, you've you have your solution tree, for instance, you now start your stakeholder mapping like I've mentioned. But before I continue, I would like to know if everybody can hear me. Please, can you all hear me? Am I okay? Let me check.
Yes, yes, we can hear you loud and clear.
Loud and clear.
Okay. Thank you. I just wanted to be sure. So stakeholder mapping and beneficiary identification. So who are the stakeholders? Who are the people important in this project? And you need to map them out from the users down to the influencers. The influencers could be, let's say, in that same village, the influencers could be the community gatekeepers. It could be the king of that village, someone with authority. And the newspaper too, they are also influential. Like you need to really think, and you can't do this alone. This is why you need to work with your team and also work with the people you are designing the project for. I know that most times when we are working, in this neurodiversity field, we can't really work with the children, but it's important to work with the parents, to work with the guidance, to work with, if we are designing it for the adult population of this neurodiversity, neurodiverse um, neurodiversity space. Sorry, it would be nice to also work with the teenagers and try to get their inputs the best way possible. So we map out our stakeholders, like I've mentioned, there are different templates, different exercises, but we can't go into all of this. If we really want to treat M&E deeply, we will stay here the whole day. Okay, sorry. So this then forms the integral part of the M&E process. Like I mentioned, you aim to develop specific indicators and important project milestones. You don't need to know all of these things for the kind of project you want to implement, but just to understand what the steps looks like in case you want to go on to design even bigger projects. But then you need to define the theoretical framework. And today we're going to look at one of the frameworks, which is called the logical framework. I thought about theory of change, but it's very complicated, and I don't think it can be understood once. I learned theory of change different times, and it was very confusing until I had to like study it, yeah. So once you have the high level theory, which could be your theory of change, then you can it's time for you to now explore the technical aspects of the work you are doing and define, incrementally how specific, observable, all of these technical things. But very importantly, you can just do a simple logical framework like we're going to look at, we're going to go through later. But the idea is for you to understand how your project will lead to specific impact, to change, to make things happen. On the different levels of monitoring evaluation, you have your activities that you want to implement. You then have, because this activity, okay, let's start with the inputs. You have inputs, what and what you need to bring together to make your project work. So you need money, you need team members, you need this, you need that. These are like the inputs. But then more concretely, you need to implement specific activities. So those activities could be holding a one-day webinar, holding protest, whatever, it's an activity. So the activity, like in our project, in this fellowship, what we're having now is an activity. It's the weekly sessions, there are activities that we implement. So your activity, you need to know that every activity you implement or execute, it will lead to output. And outputs are the immediate things that you can get out of your project. So for instance, this is an activity that we're implementing, a weekly session. What is the immediate things like the output? The output would be that 15 people, 15 fellows attended this fellowship program. This session is an immediate output. So outputs are the immediate things you can get from your project. The feedback form is an output. So your activities will lead to output. But even so many people that have worked in this space for a long time, they don't know the difference between output and outcome. So we're moving to outcome, right? So your output will lead to your outcome. So what is the outcome? This is where you cannot control, is the sphere that like you can't really control your outcome. And we have the short-term outcome and the long-term outcome. So the outcome is, so I Pascal can drag you, can keep reminding you to attend this fellowship, this training. It is within his area of influence. He can send you reminders, he can, tell you if you don't attend, you will not graduate and stuff. It can influence the output. So that can influence people that will attend. Oh, okay, I want to finish this program, so I will attend. However, Pascal cannot control the outcome, and the outcome is the behavioral changes and the change in knowledge that occurs as a result of a particular activity that has happened. So I'm cascading a session on M&E, and you are listening to me. But 2 weeks later, 1 month later, 6 months later, what you are able to do with this information you've acquired or you've garnered, like what you're able to do with this information I cannot control it. I don't know what you're going to do with this information. But if you end up doing something with this information that you've gathered today, that means that our activity has um, led to certain outcome. So it means that, oh, okay, out of 30 fellows, 20 are now doing this, um, 15 are now doing this as a result of the activity or the things that we did. So like, so your output will lead to, your activities will lead to output, and your output will lead to outcome. But then your outcome would not lead to your goal or impact. It will only contribute. So your goal, when you are designing your project, your goal has to be something very big, something that contributes to a cause, something that contributes to, something really big. Let's say you are implementing your project because you want to reduce the level of poverty in, have to also be you have to be smart goal in terms of your objective. You can't say you want to reduce the level of poverty in Nigeria. That would be too. Let's say you want to reduce the level of poverty in your community or in your city. So your now there's now a change in the way people behave. But I mean that okay, specific number of people are now let's say I trained you on how to make soap. So you're now making soap 2 months later, 6 months later, you're now making soap and you're now employing more people to make soap with you. You're not even training more people. There's now a ripple effect on that soap making session that we did. So we're not contributing to that goal, which is to reduce poverty, because more people now have jobs because of your business, and more people are now skilled to start a business. So then your milestone identification, planning, and scheduling. So very important, once you have your framework and all of that, you need to also set your milestone, specific times, and plan and schedule all of those things. And once you have your indicators, we're going to look at that in the logical framework. Once you have your indicators identified and specified in time, and your program plan are clear, then you can begin to design instruments and select tools which would work to collect the information against the key indicators at specific points in time, like your baseline and all of that. Then we now have implement, monitor, and analyze. So you need to implement at specific times, and you need to monitor and you need to analyze. And like I mentioned before, you need to also report. So when you're writing your report, the context is very key. Be sure that your program team provide input. It is always better to understate rather than overstate success. Don't overhype, you know, things that you do not do, or take pictures and say you've, I don't know if you're on LinkedIn, but a lot of people on LinkedIn, they attend an event, they'll tell you they did this, maybe they attended as a guest, but then when people close, they go and stand at the podium and take a picture and say they spoke at this event, they did this. No, it's not, that's not going to help in terms of like trying to make the change we want to see. We need to say things as they are, and context is very key. Be sensitive. The language you use is also very important. Be sensitive to the culture, the environment, the way of thinking, you know, learn like the right terms to use and all. Huh? Okay. So, okay. So because of this project is advocacy inclined, so I wanted us to look at advocacy again. I know you've done something on advocacy, but just like a refresher. So advocacy project, and yeah, you see that advocacy can take place at any level where meaningful change can happen. This is something you need to know. It mustn't be grandiose or something very big. So it could be on the local level, national level, regional level, and international level. I know that this project we have fellows from Nigeria, Ghana, the Gambia, Sierra Leone, and Liberia. So it could be a collaboration between one fellow from Nigeria and one fellow from Ghana implementing the same thing. Um, we do that a lot in the Global Shapers where I belong. So you can see Global Shapers Paris doing a particular project with Global Shaper Nairobi, doing the same project but implementing it because we want to learn from both, and so we could also leverage that. But then the important thing is that the meaningful change can happen, right? And it could be local, national, regional, and international level. Sometimes it may seek to link these levels. For instance, it may attempt to bring local experience to influence international processes. So you might want to do your project to be very research based. Okay, so in the Netherlands, this is how they take care of children with neurodiverse conditions. So we think this is a good thing for us to implement in Nigeria, for instance, or in Ghana, for instance. So all of those things together, right? Or it may also like seek to ensure that international frameworks are understood and used to demand accountability at local level, just like I've said. Um, I'm trying to look for an example, but maybe to come to mind. So clearly, the type and level of advocacy work has a huge influence over how M&A is carried out within an intervention. So different methods needs to be employed to monitor a piece of work based around lobbying of local decision makers than, for example, a global public campaign. Um, Monitoring evaluation itself is complicated because you need to pay attention to certain things. But then monitoring evaluation in advocacy project is even more complicated. And so we look at this piece that I've taken out. It says monitoring and evaluating advocacy works involves unique challenges. So this can usually be overcome provided expectations are realistic. So we don't need to set unrealistic goals when we want to develop our advocacy project. So ongoing monitoring and evaluation carried out during advocacy intervention should enhance and support real-time decision making. Advocacy evaluation should include critical and informed assessment of how organizations contributed to change. In this case, how your initiative attributed or contributed to change. You should be able to, because at the end of the day, that particular what you've done, that's as small as it is, if you can document it, if it's tangible enough, if it is something that we can see that has happened, you can even use that to build on something even bigger, or it can serve as a reference point for other people. And the problem in NGOs, the problem in charity organizations these days is that we hide knowledge. We don't want people to react because we're competing for funds, for donation and stuff. So we always hide information. We don't want people to learn from our projects, from what we've done, and so we kind of hoard those information that we have. But the idea is that we're supposed to work together because at the end of the day, we're trying to fight for a cause. We're trying to make things better. And just here, I took out like a particular, explanation just to give you more context. Your advocacy could be policy impact, policy implementation, policy change, agenda setting, change in discourse, changed awareness, attitude, and opinion, policy outcome. Different things. It mustn't be too big. Just even it could be that something has happened before, but okay, like for instance, NSAS. At the end of the day, what did we achieve? What are the lessons? How can we build on this? You know. And so the next slide, I don't know why my slide is very slow. Okay, I could do this. Okay, so M&E in advocacy. So monitoring and evaluating advocacy work involves unique challenges, like I mentioned. So this can usually be overcome, provided the expectations are realistic. Oh, I think I just repeated everything, my bad. Well, yeah, we have like different ways in which CSOs, by CSO I mean civil society organizations, how they can carry out advocacy work. So like I said, it mustn't be really big. So it could be advising. So, engaging in policy debates, providing technical assistance. We all know what is going on. we all see everything, in terms of the neurodiversity space, the equality discussion. I think some years back I was working with an organization, and the idea was to lobby the parliament to uh, domesticate the VAP Act in Lagos years back. And so basically, the whole project itself was just visiting people like Desmond Elliot, because the person, the constituency, how you call it anymore, but it was representing the constituency for Surulere. So it's like having conversations with him day in, day out. It's not the typical project I understand. It's just like a consistent further conversation with a particular stakeholder just to make things. So like it could be advising, so like I said, engaging in policy debate, providing technical assistance, research, piloting and demonstration. It could just be that. Could also be campaigning, so public meetings, petitions and letter writing, public education and awareness, media work. It could be that. Could also be lobbying. By this I mean meeting decision makers directly, like I did with the project for the also like participation in diplomacy, offering incentives. And yes, this is a big question when we talk about lobbying, because some of us are like, oh, we're very ethical, why do we give money? But sometimes for us to have that change, for us to see the change occur, we need to lobby, we need to, is the situation of West Africa. I mean, it's the situation. Some of us sometimes, I mean, there have been times I wanted to implement a project. Like I was working on a project in Nigeria back then, and the idea was to provide enough teachers, call it teacher bank project. So the idea was to get more teachers to underserved community schools, because they did not have teachers. They didn't even have mathematics and English teachers. So the idea was to bring teachers for them. But can you imagine that when we speak with the chiefs, you need to give money, you need to do this, but you need to look at the bigger picture. At the end of the day, we want these children, we want these students to have access to quality education, to be able to compete with their contemporaries in urban spaces and all. So we have to look beyond that and do what we have to do. We can't say, how can I give you money? I'm bringing something to your village. It's not supposed to be ideal, but then sometimes lobbying has to be this way, and it's so sad. But we have to do what we need to do to get what we want, which in this case is to help and make the society a better place. Activism, it could also be this. This is direct action, protests, demonstrations, boycotts. All of these things are different ways we can carry out advocacy. And bringing M&E into it is to also be very attentive to what we are doing, the different activities that we are doing at different points in time, to understand what is working, what is not working, and to understand from the beginning the evaluation part, like what is working, what is not working, is like the monitoring part, like I've mentioned. But evaluation, the idea is also to understand what was the situation before we started, and what is the situation now that we've ended, and what is the situation 6 months later. Is it because of my project, or is it because of something else? We need to be able to understand these things, and this is why monitoring and evaluation is very important in almost everything we do. So the importance of M&E in projects, like I've said before, so monitoring is ongoing tracking of activities and progress. So it's very important, because without this, we can't really track what we are doing. We're just implementing a lot of things, we're just doing things. I'll give an example. This teacher bank project I explained, before coming to the organization, the project itself had spent, the organization had spent over 5 million naira on that project. And when I came in, I first of all came in as a consultant, and I was trying to understand what has been done so far. And I could not really track anything. Like I could not really see any outcome of this project. And I now realized later on with the project team that there was no means of tracking this thing. So we're just spending money. The organization had already spent 5 million naira on this project for over few months, and there was nothing. So what I did was to quickly um, shut down the project by doing a closeout ceremony, and I had to organize a 2 to 3 day workshop. So that way we are able to have we're able to understand what is going on. And for me to do this, I had to bring in some of the students, like maybe was it 6 students, because I wanted to cut across the different classes. So from the JSS1 to the SS3 class, I think it was 12, two to a boy and a boy and a girl across the 6 classes. I also needed to bring in some teachers. I also needed to bring in the principal and one of the administrative staff, and I needed to bring my team. So it was a lot of money we spent because they had to lodge them in the hotel. It's a residential training because we don't want them to be going home and coming back. We want a full training. And so we stayed 2 to 3 days and we were reviewing everything, asking them questions, and they felt like they were part of the project. And we redesigned a project that was more meaningful, and we learned from the lessons, from the errors, and in just like a few months later, we were able to get African Union grant for that project because we had designed the project better for the community. And then we expanded. So it was in Niger State, but then we expanded to other states, Abuja, Nasarawa. We expanded to more places, and the project is still running till today. And at this point, they've even developed an app called the Teacher Bank app for the project. And it's very exciting to see something that you were part of. So evaluation is a periodic assessment of achievement, effectiveness, and impact. I don't need to maybe stress on this, but M&E helps NGOs, organizations, not just NGO, but assess if they are making a difference. Very important. So many organizations are just existing, but they're not really making impact. They're not making a difference. They're just, oh, we want to set up, oh, there's a funding stream for projects around women to empower women. So let's start something to empower women so we can get funding. And this is a problem in the NGO space. But then the M&E helps you a lot to like understand what you're doing. Are you making a difference? How do we turn around? How do we, even if we're not doing something right, we can always, take the U-turn. Then it also provides information for learning, decision making, and adaptation. Very important. How do you quickly adapt? You know, I'll always use like examples from my own experience. So there was a time I was implementing a national project. It was called the Young Historian Project, and it involved over 3,000 students from different universities. And just like Pascal will collect feedback from, but for us, we had to really adapt quickly because I think it was an electionary year, and um, we quickly understood that it would be nice to change certain things because of the elections. So we were just using the lessons, the learning. So there's something called the PESTLE, PESTLE. It's an acronym. So PE is like a risk and assessment framework. So the P is the political. So you have to look at the political side of things, analyze the risk that could happen from the political side when you're implementing your project. The first E is environmental. And what are the environmental risks that can pose a threat to that project? And the S is the social risk. What are the social risks? What are the social limitations or occurrences that could limit your project? And the T is technological, technical. So what are the technical risks that could hamper your project and stuff like that? Um, you know, and then the L is the legal risk. What are the legal risks? What are certain things that you're not aware of, or that can happen, that could pose a threat to your project? And the last E is economic risk. When you are doing your budgeting, for instance, maybe you've said to run this campaign, you need 50,000 naira. And there's, everything that happens to dollar affects Nigerian market. So, for instance, tomorrow or next week, dollar goes up, those things you budgeted will go up. So while you're doing your budgeting, why actually put 5,000 naira for this when you can estimate? So you do your base budget and your projected budget. So yes, this costs 5,000 normally, but I'm estimating it to be 6,000. So that at the end of the day, if the price goes up, you don't need to start running up and down. Or even if the price, even if you need to run up and down, you can, learn from that, essentially, if you have enough money from the funder. Then M&E is an essential tool for management and accountability. Very important. I think it's also like straightforward. Okay. So now we're getting into like the more technical part of this M&E framework. So now we have like this framework is a template anyway that helps us to really, because I've been screaming M&E, M&E. What is even M&E? What does it look like in terms of putting it together? So it's very simple. You can come up with simple templates. So it could be just simple template like this. Your activity, your output, and your outcome. Your indicator, what are you measuring? How will you collect the data? When when will you collect the data? And the last one is who will collect the data. So you can see an example here. So the activity itself is to run basic literacy classes. That's just the activity. So now you can see this output and outcome come to life. So the output here is that targeted literacy classes. That's the output. Then the outcome of these targeted literacy classes will be improved literacy skills, because when people attend classes, we are assuming that they will become literate. So now, indicator, right? So for the output side, you are saying 4 intensive once 1 month course. So like this project is a 9-week course. So for this, the output is 4 intensive 1 month courses. So it means like once in a week. Then for the outcome, like I said, we can't control what can happen at the outcome level. It's the sphere beyond our control. So number of individuals passing IELTS, which is the English language qualification exam. So because of this literacy class, more people will pass IELTS. So that's an outcome, you see. So, and how do you know? It's true, you need to have your indicators. So for the output level, it's just your activities, activity based. So yes, you've had 4 intensive 1 month courses, and so what? Okay, because of these intensive classes, people are now passing IELTS. Good. So that's the outcome. So how will you collect this data? So you can see at the output level, you see pre and post quizzes or tests. So after every class, you do a quiz. Do you really understand? So yes, you understand. 5 people understood, 7 people understood. Just like how Pascal, like I said, will collect the feedback from. So those are the ways for us to collect the data, pre and post quizzes. But then at the outcome level, short follow-up interviews, face-to-face, Skype, telephone, Snapchat, whatever medium you want to use, to actually talk with these people to understand how they now speak. And also like another thing that could work here is the results, compilation of the results of this IELTS, people that take the IELTS exam. So when will you collect the data? So start and end of courses for the output level, but for the outcome, like I said, is a long term. It doesn't happen immediately, and because it's a behavioral and knowledge change kind of thing we're looking at for the outcome rather. So 1 year after the initial training. So many organizations, once they implement their activities, they snap picture. Oh, 5,000 people attended this event. So we celebrate a lot of output. We celebrate output so much, but we forget the outcome, which is really going to now like help us understand if we actually made an impact or not. So, but a lot of organizations, even the big organizations that today, they celebrate output. 5,000 people attended, we hosted this, we did this, we gave, But 6 months later, 1 year later, 1 year, 3 months later, what is happening as a result of that big event you've had last year? We don't really know. People don't care about tracking it. who will collect the data? So individual tutors can collect the data for the output level, but again, for the outcome level, maybe the project coordinator, because the individual tutors might not be part of the team. For instance, the facilitators that come every week to teach you a particular topic, they're not our team members, they don't work with us. So they can assess you, give you assignments, give us feedback. Oh, the class actually understands and all. But then the work for the outcome level, it's our own work because we don't pay these facilitators to stay and for up to 1 year to monitor. So the people who are paid to work every day, the coordinators and all of that, they can get the information. So this is a simple template. I think I have another one. Yeah, so this is like a full template here that's that you can just use for your M&E, for your framework. So the goal, the outcome, the output, the activities, you have your indicators, definition, your baseline, your targets, your data source, where you're getting your data from, how often will you get this information and all, then who is responsible for it and reporting. So let's take the first one. In M&E, basically, it's best to start from bottom, should be because your activities relate to your output and your output relate to your outcome, and your outcome will contribute to your goal. So let's check one activity. So yeah, we have number of reading at home kits distributed to parents. This is your indicator. And your definition is number of complete reading at home kits given to students to pass on their parent. And at the baseline, it is 0. There's not information here. And the target is 1,000. And the data source is kit delivery records. And the frequency is quarterly. You're going to distribute this quarterly. And who is responsible for it? The teachers, and the reporting, the kit report, and annual program report. So like that, you build it up. And once you design, what this framework does for you is that it makes everything clear. Your team members understand. Even you, when you're done with your project, you understand if it was successful or not. So now we'll go into like the technical part, which is the logical framework. Like I said, we're not going to do the theory of change because that's a bit too elaborate and maybe not interesting for this kind of project you want to implement. But then the logical framework is the output of a program design process where you work on how the program activities will lead to the immediate output and how this will lead to the outcomes and the goal. In an ideal world, a log frame should be flexible and updated frequently. So again, one thing about M&E is that it is adaptive, and that's the best way to work because most times when you do your framework, it is not cast on stone. Like it doesn't mean that it's going to like be like this. So you need to adopt the hybrid methodology in project management. Things can really change, so you change with it. So that's what your logical framework should look like. If tomorrow you realize that things have changed, you cannot say, oh no, this is how me I did it, this is how the log frame is saying, you can't change it. No, the log frame is it's something that's flexible, it's something you can always adjust. But if your project is funded, and the funder is making you pay attention, like they need all of this information. You've sent them a log frame from the beginning and you've agreed that, okay, this is how it should be at the end. If things change, you need to have the conversation with your stakeholders first. By this, I mean your funders, to explain to them this is what is happening. And you must agree at that point that you need to change, you need to make certain changes here and there. When preparing a log frame, one of the most difficult columns to complete is the risk/assumption. An easy way to check whether your risk and assumption makes sense is to look at the activity rule and follow the logic. If these activities are undertaken and the assumptions are true, then this output will be produced. Don't worry, we're going to look at a diagram to explain better. And then do the same with the outputs. If the outputs are created and the assumptions are true, then the outcome will be achieved. And then the same for the outcome. If the outcome is achieved and the assumptions are true, then the goal will be achieved. Let's put it into perspective. So now this is what a log frame should look like. So we have our goal, and the goal is 10% increase in the number of grade 5 to grade 6 primary students continuing on to high school within 3 years. We want to increase that number by 10%. And the outcome is that we have improved reading proficiency among children in grade 5 to grade 6 by 20% within 3 years. And the output is that 500 grade 5 to grade 6 students with low reading proficiency complete a reading summer camp. And the activity is that we want to run 5 summer reading camps, each with capacity for 100 grade 5 to grade 6 students. So 100 times 5 will give us 500. So now the indicator, if we run 5 summer reading camps, each with capacity for 100 grade 5 to grade 6 students, the indicator will now be the number of summer camps that we've had to confirm that the activity held. So if we run 5 summer camp and the parents of children with low reading proficiency are willing to send them to the camp, then 500 grade 5 to grade 6 students with reading proficiency will complete a reading summer camp. Let me explain. Our activity is to run summer camp 5. So your assumption in your logical framework is that of a positive light, while your risk is the negative. So when you put your risk, it has to be in a negative form, and it's supposed to help you to you need to have a plan to mitigate the risk. But your assumption is in a positive light because you are assuming. So you are saying that parents of children with low reading proficiency are willing to send them to the camp. We are assuming. So we need to put an assumption. So if we organize 5 reading camps and the parents and each parent of this, so we have 100 grade 5 to grade 6 students. So every parent of this grade 5 to grade 6 student, they allow their children to go to the camp. It means that we would have 500 grade 5 to grade 6 students attend the camp, attend the training, and that will lead us to which is the output. The same thing for the assumption for the output, that children apply what they've learned in the summer camp at school. If they apply what they've learned at the summer camp at school, it will now improve the reading proficiency among children in grade 5 to grade 6. Just like that. So you see how, but it's very simple but complicated at the same time. Okay, so this is a logical framework, a full logical framework, which is actually the same thing, but more clear because now we have the indicators and means of verification. So the goal of this project, like I said, is 10% increase in the number of grade 5 to grade 6 students. So your outcome is here, and now we even have more outputs. First is 500 grade 5 to grade 6 students with low reading proficiency complete a reading summer camp. And second is that 500 parents of children in grade 5 to grade 6 with low reading proficiency help their children to read at home, because these children need support from their parents. And so if all of these are what we've written here for our goal, for our outcome, for our output, for our activities, knowing fully well that when you implement your activities, it will lead to your output. And when you achieve your output, it would contribute or it would achieve some outcome, and your outcome will contribute to this goal. Your indicators definitely needs to be the way you are able to confirm that that particular thing has happened. For instance, if we say distribute 500 read at home kits to parents of children with parents of attending summer camps. This is supposed to become summer camp. How do you, what's the indicator? The indicator is number of the kits you've distributed, whether 500, 300. Because if it's 300, you will not achieve your goal or your output of having 500 grade 5 to grade 6 students with low, because at the end of the day, we are 200 books short, reading kits short. And then how do you verify this? Is the number of kits distributed, and your assumptions follow. So now let's go to the output. So this 500 parents of children in grade 5 to grade 6 with low reading proficiency help their children read at home. So number of parents helping their children to read at home, that was the indicator. But then how do we verify this? Is the survey of parents conducted at the end of each summer camp. But then you also need to collect, because the parents can lie. They can say, yes, well, we are supporting our children and all of that, but the children would not lie. So you also need to have survey from the children. Are your parents actually supporting you? So that's another means of verification. And like that, we have our logical framework. So your logical framework should look like this. You should have your goal, your outcome, your output, and your activities. And they don't need to be too much for the project you're trying to develop. And your goal does not need any assumption at this point. So your goal always needs to be blank for the assumption part, because at this point you've achieved what you wanted. Because once there is more, when there are more assumptions, then it complicates things. So this is how your logical framework should look like. What is your project? What's the goal of your project? What are the outcomes? Remember, the outcomes are changes in behavior or in knowledge, something that is beyond your control. As you can see here, you say improve reading proficiency among children in grade 5 to grade 6 by 20% within 3 years. And it's long term. So yes, you're implementing a project right now, but then your outcome you can't see the outcome right now. Or everything you see at that, even if you come and say, oh, people participated, people said they will do this, they will do that, is output, and that is positive output. But then 2 years later, 1 month and 6 months later, are they doing those things they said they would do? That's another way to confirm that your output happened, your outcome has happened. And sometimes your proposed outcome might not be the outcome that will happen, because, like I said, it is not something within your control. So that is why if you are developing your concept note, in your outcome part, you put proposed outcome. You propose the outcome, because at the end of the day, you might see other outcomes would happen, and it's not something you planned, but those are like things that we can put together in our report at the end of the day. So now we've been talking about logical framework, M&E, but how do you collect your data, which is very important for you because you would implement a change project, a pet project soon, and you need to know how to collect the data, because this is what makes your M&E at the end of the day. So data collection is a systematic process of gathering, measuring, and analyzing accurate information from various sources, such as the survey, like we've been sharing surveys, interviews, like the focus group discussions, observations, and digital devices to answer research questions, test hypotheses, and inform decision making. But for this part, it's like very simple thing. Like data collection shouldn't be difficult. And I have an example here of how you can plan your data. So this is like the Delta River Latrine Building Project data collection plan. So you need to have a plan for your data. And this is something you can find, this particular one in PMG Pro. So first of all, you have what do you need to know? Who/where can we get that information from? What kind of human resources will be required? What kind of budget will be required? What kind of time frame will be required. So what do we need to know? What are the local association, local government, other, what are the local associations? What are the local governments, other actors? What are the relevant? Okay, so you don't really know what this project is about, so to be, but just like having those information, knowing what you need to know. How is the household disposal for waste? Because again, this project, because this is just data collection plan, but the project itself is built when you follow that PMD pro, is built from scratch, so you can have more context. But you know, so how is the household disposal for waste? These are the questions you need to ask yourself when you're designing your project to collect the right information. How is the commercial slash industrial disposal for waste? How is it? This will now help you to form the different questions that will be in your questionnaire. So on the second part, which is the who slash where can we get that information? So for what are the local association? So maybe meeting with the community association and cooperative, you can get information from them. How is the household disposal for waste? Community families, association, cooperatives, they can give you answer to that question. And how is the commercial slash industrial disposal for waste? Working with community, talking with community members also give you that information. What kind of human resources will be required? So for what are the local association, you need an experienced field agent to carry out this information collection exercise. For how is the household disposal for waste, you need field agents to visit families, go to their homes, observe as well as listen to what they are saying, because they can tell you that they did this and do that, but you see their house littered and stuff. Oh, as well as the how is the commercial and industrial disposal for waste. You also need to get an experienced field agent for this. Then what kind of budget will be required? So field agent, as the name implies, they need to move up and down. So like the transportation is important, lunch is important, office materials for the administrative part is important. The same applies for almost all of them. What kind of time frame will be required? So you need to be realistic again. Would one day be enough to collect this information? How many numbers, how many families do you want to get this information from? So you can see that with the community association, it's 2 days, but the family part is 1 week, because they might maybe the family, maybe you need to get lots of families to answer these questions that you have. So 1, 2, 3, or 4 days might not be enough. So a whole week is very important. So maybe you can go to the remote place, the outskirts, everywhere. And the other part is 2 days. So basically, it's just like a sketch for you to have an idea on what you can plan to put in place when you're thinking about data collection. And lastly, we'll talk about the types of data collection. So we have secondary data, we have primary quantitative data, and we have primary qualitative data. For secondary data to implement your project, you need to carry a literature review. What is the general idea of this? Neurodiversity, what's the general idea in West Africa? What are they saying? What have people done okay, I want to influence, I want to build a policy, I want to recommend a policy. Have people really, do we have people that have actually worked on this before? And you need to do a literature review to help you understand this. Record reviews as well. What's the record saying? It's sad that in Nigeria, for instance, we don't have a lot of record keeping habits, but we can find things different in different places, or even use the information you gather from close nearby countries. Existing statistics could also be a secondary data collection method. Indices, government documents, other NGO documents. Like I said, NGOs are supposed to work together to understand things together, not to work in isolation. So it'd be nice to also have NGOs open their information repository. Then primary quantitative data. So this could be knowledge, practice, and coverage surveys, could be household surveys, could be standardized tests and surveys, basically surveys. then standardized observation instrument, and anthropometric measurement. For the primary qualitative, is the brainstorming, affinity diagram, focus group like we've used, historical narrative, timelines, locality mapping, semi-structured interviews, key informant interviews, ranking interviews. But on a simple term, or in simple terms, for you to collect your data, you can just have, depending though, you need to look at your people you are working with. If you want to go and work, you want to collect data from people in the village, you cannot design a survey for them to fill. They don't have access to smartphones. So you design your questionnaire in paper and work with them, like instruct them. Like I said, it's the teacher bank project, for instance. When I wanted to collect data, at first I designed the data, I designed the data on SurveyMonkey, and we got to the community and I saw that they don't have access to smartphones. And so we started using tabs, giving them tabs, going one by one. That was very exhausting. So the next time we came back to collect data, we already prepared everything and printed them in paper. So everybody had papers. We gave them the questionnaire, but in paper. We printed it out. And because some of them don't even know how to read and write, so we have to even like work with them, assign locals to be with them, and explain those things in their language to say, this is what this question is asking you to say. Is it a yes or is it a no? And like that to collect the data. And it's always important to combine qualitative and um, quantitative data. So while you use surveys to collect information, data, also very important to do the qualitative part, which is the focus group discussion, the key informant interviews, because some things you might not really get the information. Like if you the questions are open ended, and some people might not be expressive enough to write. So it'd be nice to have the conversation with them. In that sense, they're able to talk to you better. They can tell you something that they could not even write or express in writing. And that you can also see their gesticulation, their mannerism that can now add more um, they can add more perspective to what they are saying. It gives you a richer information or report at the end of the day. So I think we've come to the end of this talk. I feel like it's a lot of talking. But yeah, I would love to take questions if any.
Oh wow, amazing, amazing. Okay, well, thank you so much for that wonderful section, Ebuka. And I'm sure that we learned a lot of things from today's section because I personally learned lots of things. Okay, without any further ado, I'm sure that some of us might have some question, maybe one or two questions. So, I'm just going to give us like 2 minutes or 3 minutes for that because our time is already fast spent. Okay. In the meantime, you can give us your feedback by filling the feedback form that I just posted in the chat room now. Okay. So as usual, if you have any question, you can indicate in the chat room or you can raise your hand so that you can unmute and ask any questions you may have. So like I said, we have 2 minutes for that. Any question from anybody? Any question? You can raise your hand. If you have any question, you can raise your hand or you can indicate in the chat room. Yes, output and outcome. Well understood.
I'm beginning to raise no questions.
Any questions from anybody? So it means that we all understood everything that was taught to us today.
Okay, maybe I have a question.
Okay.
Yeah. I just a general question, by the way. I just wanted to know that you understand this session, the basics of M&E, and that you are confident enough with the session on project management. You're confident enough to design um, a pet project that you can implement in your community. It's a general question to everyone. Is everyone muted? Maybe, I don't know, because I'm a bit worried. Pascal. Hello. Oh, okay. The question is that you had a session on project management and now you've done something on M&E. So I wanted to know if you are confident enough uh, at this time to now develop a pet project and ensuring that there are M&E system in place to implement that pet project.
You can unmute yourself if you want to answer.
Okay, I don't know. maybe the session was not well understood, but yeah, I think we'll maybe find out when we start designing the project by next week.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, since we don't have any question for our facilitator this evening, um, okay, okay, sorry, because you mentioned that you are going to give us an assignment as regards to the pet project. So,
Yeah, so I think that we'll just maybe work on the project that we're developing and try to do a simple uh, M&E for the project that we've come up with. It could be collaborative project, it could be a single project, just you. But I think the assignment is just now to go ahead and develop your project and try to infuse an M&E system to it. Then I will just look at the project and try to explain to you if you need to adjust anything. And don't forget that for the project implementation, um, we want to see the best project and reward it with some money. Yeah.
okay, all right. I believe that we all heard what you said. Develop an M&E for your pet project and submit. Is there a deadline or is it going to come with the pet project?
I know that we still have one more session on stakeholder engagement, stakeholder
Yes.
and leadership. Yeah. So we could use the whole of next week to do that. So maybe by
Okay.
Friday next week.
Okay. Okay. So what that means for us is that we need to start working on our different pet projects, right? If I were you, I would start by drawing out the plan using the project management that was taught earlier. Then you now go into the M&E sections. And I also noticed that some groups are yet to submit the group tasks given to us by our facilitator last week. So if your group have not been able to do that, you still have the opportunity to do the tasks and submit on the Google Classroom, right? If you're having any difficulty submitting it, kindly let me know as soon as possible, right? So, without any other further thing, I don't know. Nobody has any question. I believe today's section was fully understood, right? Amazing. All right, so let's go to work, guys. Begin now to start working on your pet project. Remember, the best project is going to receive a reward. And also know that one of the criteria of getting the certificate from this fellowship is active participation number one, and also doing your pet project, right? Like we said earlier, it could be a personal project. You can decide to do your own project on your own. You can decide to collaborate with people or with a person or with people depending. Okay, which is the reason we actually created the group to allow for clear communication. At least you can mingle among yourself and know who are your visions aligned with. Okay, so that you can know if you want to collaborate with somebody on a project, it's easier to do that. Okay, feel free to reach out to us if you are confused about anything or have any question. We are ever ready to attend to all of us. Okay. Thank you so much for being part of today's section. Remember, fill out the feedback form that have been posted already here in the chat room. Right? You can click the link. It's not taking more than 30 seconds for you to, answer the few questions there. Thank you so much for being part of today's section. Thank you, and do have a lovely evening. So our session today is officially over. Thank you. Bye-bye.